Hello, it's me, it's Wolfram, and today we will talk about Fairy of Nectar, Coutir, or Coutir, or yeah, just Coutir. Okay, so previously in this channel I have posted lately my latest deck list for DBT2 Zorga, but I think the most important card that makes this deck work, it's Coutir, which I think it's like a very cool card with a lot of interactions within the deck, so I think it's interesting to cover them. So first of all, the card has this tutor skill. You just call it and find for a tool you might want to play. But I think there is more that comes to this card. It's not just having the option, which is nice to play an order if you don't have another. That's cool. But I think in this deck it has 3 or 4 different uses that I think we need to understand in order to be able to play the deck to the maximum potential. Okay, so first of all, this card, it's a tutor. This is the first use you can have this V. It's a tutor, but we will see that this deck, it's a bit complex because it kind of needs to use the orders themselves as a resource more than ever, because you need to have the right orders on the right places between the deck, the drop zone, your hand, and your bind zone. And depending where the cards are, you will be able to sequence different paths for you to play the game. Okay, so as long as you have an order in your deck, Coutir will be able to find it and you will be able to play that. Okay, however, there is one thing about Nadir, which is the fact that you want to scale based on bind zone. So the more orders you have in your bind zone, the stronger your boosters will grow, and the faster you can bind them, the bigger and the faster they will become more big. Okay, so what we can do with this card is just turn 2, we use this alongside with Shadow Cloak. We set up our early game orders, turn 2 orders, and with this we might find Blitz order or an order we want to play turn 3. And we find this, and we suddenly can grab 2 orders for the next turn. Maybe we can grab that, and maybe we say okay, let's find for dragons, or let's find for RPDs, or let's find for Zorgas, or let's find, or no, I'm missing a PG, so I will find for a PG with this. Okay, so by running those 2 cards alongside with this, you can, as soon as turn 2, you can set up your turn 3, and sometimes even your turn 4 plays, because this will be able to recurse more orders from the drop zone, and we will be able to construct an elaborated sequence throughout the game that will let you control what you're doing. So yeah, this card is very important for setting up, because Nadir can be a bit weak turn 3, but if you do this turn 2, then you magic this with that, and then you bind another. This is 15k already. Okay, so it's 15k from RPD, 15k from this, and any booster it's already 38k, which is a very good number for turn 3. So yeah, Coutir fulfills this role of setting this fast. Then it gets combined with multiple copies of any of those to prepare your turns ahead, or even setting up your defense with the Blitz order. This is tutorable, by the way. And then you scale very fast, and you have control of the cards you're going to be using on the long run. Okay? However, there is more than just that, because we need to read this card a bit in depth, because when you use this, you automatically add 2 cards to your hand, which is the Blitz order, which it's some kind of another +1 or a PG if you want, because you can draw the card and maybe you are able to guard attacks with just 1 card, which is really good. But then you will be adding also another order. Okay, so this card with this and that has 2 kind of uses in regard on how you prepare the turns. For starters, you can let's say you have some orders in your hand. You can use this in 3 ways. You can mill an order, let's say you mill this and you have that on the bind zone, so you can, let's say you will use this turn 3 and you know you want to use Forbidal with the new one turn 4. By using that, you find the tool you want, bind it, and then you have the card in hand prepared for the next turn. Maybe it's not in hand, maybe it's in the drop zone because you have milled it, and Overcoming puts it back into your hand, right? You can use multiple copies to set up the cards. Okay, so by using Coutir and Shadow Cloak, you can bind the card you want to be using the next turn, so this acts as an actual tutor, just like Shadow Cloak does. And then because Yeah, just as Shadow Cloak does. Then we have another use, which is the thing that comes from how the overcoming itself pluses for the deck. So people doesn't like this card because it reads as a -1, but when you are going to combine it with overcoming, you can go like discard, I don't know, you discard an order, put another order on your drop zone, and it doesn't mind the fact that you just discarded, because you will get the order you want to play from your deck, and you will use the second +1 from overcoming to get Blitz order, and then you get to hand the order you want to play next turn. This way you can use overcoming and Coutir together, not to put the card on bind zone, but to set it up on drop zone and put it back into your hand. So basically you use the plussing from overcoming, you don't plus as much, but you prepare the right play to win on the long run. Okay, yeah, basically with those 3 cards you can do, you can prepare for any play that there is available in the game, okay, with some foresight. Additionally to that, there is another use, which is the thing that you can use this card as just for what it's printed late game. Let's say you are versus Police or versus Snow, and I don't know, yeah, Miasma it's very good versus Snow. Maybe you want to bounce something in the drop from PG, or I don't know, or you want to drop cards, or I don't know. Let's just say there is one order you want to use in a particular matchup, because it lets you exploit what you are good against them. You can just use this, put the card, you use it, it goes back to the bottom. For example, Snow, it will bind this to Prison, right? So you can call another, use the card again, not from the Prison, but you will have the space. So you can keep abusing the cards that annoy your opponent, okay? And this is still thinning because you will have one less card shuffling, because this will go to the bottom, okay? So those are some of the uses that you can be employing that for, which I think it might require some kind of practice, because depending on what you are looking for, the card might actually not be where you expected it to be, because after doing that, the cards can go to so much places. They can go back to bottom, they can go to soul, they can go to bind, okay? So you just need to care about that, but with practice I think this card is really good, and if you understand really well how to convert advantage with this to prepare the right turns ahead, will be very powerful. Okay, additionally I want to talk about a particular play that there is between this card, Shadow Cloak, and RPD, because sometimes, let's get another booster, let's say this, okay, so sometimes you have a board like that, you have, I don't know, you have this in your hand, and this is in your drop zone, there is an RPD which is dead, it doesn't matter, okay, and you have like one booster here, okay, sometimes you don't want to call 2 RPDs, let's say they are at 4, and in any situation where Nadir has to be no guarded to survive, if the situation is agreed to win, you no longer need 2 RPDs unless you want them to forcefully guard both RPDs before taking Zorga. This would depend on how much powers there are, because maybe Zorga is a 13k and you don't want them to get a defensive, so then of course you want to do Dragon, because they can easily guard the Zorga, okay? You don't want that. You just want that for situations where it's a crit to win situation anyway, and you don't need I lost the track of what I was saying, but it's fine, you got the point, okay? So in some situations you might want not to go for double RPD and 2 boosters, but instead you would do this, okay? And RPD will get there, a Philander will have all the powers, okay? Or any booster, rank or chain, whatever, okay? So instead of calling the second RPD, you prepare this because you want to do a bounce, because you want to survive. Then you call Coutir here, and you set up the whatever it's the order you want to play that turn or for the next turn, and you will have access to the maximum potency. Maybe you do the bounce or whatever, or get Blitz BG to hand, Blitz order to hand, whatever, and you never lost advantage from this card being called. Okay, so there is some kind of ways to use the cards together that just maximize both the tempo, because you are playing the correct cards every time, and maximize not losing card advantage. So sometimes this card is not even a -1, because one of the problems or the issues would be call a card you don't want to call. It can also go there, by the way, and then you have to discard another. Even then, since you are allowing yourself to play in the best way possible, oftenly enough you are just grinding the game or pushing the game enough in just the right way in order to win the most of the times. But you can also like call it this here, and you can still go for the double booster play and just do the double RPD with I don't know, yeah, with Alana, whatever. Okay, you can also do that. And if they are playing removals, then this card will just keep dying. Okay, and that's completely fine. Okay, so yeah, I think this is basically it. It's basically it. I think I'm forgetting something. Like, I'm pretty sure, 100% sure I'm forgetting something. Ah, yes. I remembered. Oh god. Yes, I remembered. I wanted to talk about some good order combinations, okay? So, I'm not going to say like you should always do that, but those are combinations that I think that come up often enough for you to maybe want to try them or focus on them, or if you don't know what to do in some turns, maybe you can go for that. And I would like to divide this in like 2 parts, like from turn 0 to turn 3, and then from turn 3 to the rest of the game, because I think those parts are played differently. For starters, if we focus on the early game, I think this card is the card we want to fight for the most, because it sets up our power and it sets up the fact that we can start grinding these and getting our cards to hand fast and start playing the game we want to be playing. Okay, but sometimes it comes up that you need to care for Malice and for Habitat, okay? Why am I saying this? Because sometimes you need to use Habitat, like if they are grade 2 gaming, it's usually easier because you have more turns to play and develop your thing, because you can like mill this and this, for example, use that, grab Malice to turn, call 2 dragons, then you're staying on grade 2, you use Malice. Okay, it's easier if there is a grade 2 game in between, because you can usually get to play 2 of the orders, but sometimes you will have to choose, I think, between this and that. Okay, if you're running pure Nadir, I think you should be inclined towards this more often because of how the powers scale. But if you're in Zorga Masks, you can choose to go for that, set up your Shadow Cloak, and because Zorga Masks has the inherent power, and you will be able to have a good turn 3 without relying on this giving you 5k. And also, like, if you have Zorga Masks in hand, because you have Mask and Zorga Masks in hand, you can Persona Write and then use Zorga Masks to a magic, so that would bind another, so you will further increase your power. But yeah, if you're on pure Nadir, you might want to focus more on this and just accept you don't have the Shadow Cloak. But sometimes you do really need to choose. It depends on what pieces do you have, but those are your main targets. And when there is a grade 2 in between, you might want to consider that one as well, because you can call the dragons, kill them, and you then get a lot of soul. Also, don't forget to call Alana out of this. Like, I love doing that, because it depends, right? But sometimes having Alana just make the games way easier. If you don't have Alana, you can always masks, but yeah, Alana works throughout the course of the game. The crit itself, like, you don't need the 8 crits, you can drop 1 crit from your deck and you will be fine, trust me, just be happy, okay? So yeah, this is basically your turn 2, okay? When you are doing this, you also need like to take into account how many tutors do you have, how many Shadow Cloaks, how many Coutirs do you have, and then you might want to start setting up for the future. Those are the orders you will care about, turn 3. If you're going first, if you haven't been able to green Overcoming, you might want to, because it goes to damage or whatever, okay? You might want to feel more inclined to find for Miasma in order to equalize the powers to the right number in order to not lose the tempo. However, if this is covered, then you might want to get this first for Persona Rights or RPDs, and if you already have that, maybe you want to set up something else. Like this card, it's more situational turn 3, you don't need that as much, same goes for this, but if you can get to game with that, that's strong, so you might want to account for it. And you definitely want to also find for this, okay? This is turn 2 still, and you might want to like grab all of those. Sometimes, or usually enough, especially if you run copies of Philander, you will have enough pieces and you have like this comfort situation where you can find everything and be happy. This happens more often than, like it happens often enough, okay? So you can also, or you might want also to grab for this, but be careful with that because we need to play the defense of the deck like in a good way. We'll talk about this later, okay? But you want to turn 2, depending on if there is a Lana, extra Lana, or Malice, you might not want to use this as soon as turn 2 in order to keep the soul, because you need 2 soul to do double bounce, so it depends on how many bounces you want to perform next turn, or even if you want to use this again turn 3. If you want to use again turn 3, maybe you can use this to plus turn or safecast turn 2 and then just do 1 bounce, that's fine. But you need to learn when to keep this card in hand and not use it, okay? This card works similarly to a PG. It's like you will use it more often enough because you will keep using it and bind, but you need to care because if you use this in a turn where the next turn you also want the blitz, you need to care because if you use it when you shouldn't, then you might feel forced to use that instead, I don't know, Malice for a soul or this to draw the persona or whatever, okay? So you need to be smart about how you use this card. But yeah, turn 2, you will find for this and then you will want to start preparing 1 order to play next turn. And those are more circumstantial. I'm using this. I like that actually because this it's very good with Alana early. It's like an extra habitat that I can use with Alana. And because later on it can soul blast the Zorga Nadir to call it and get it back into my hand, so I like that. And yeah, those are the situational orders, those are the ones you're going to use more often. And yeah. Okay, so for your turn 3, you might want to care about that. However, and starting from that point, we are reaching a point where we start to green so much and we become extremely powerful. Like, we want to exploit this as much as we can without like tunnel visioning into it. And we want to be smart about RPGs, okay? So we want to, like this deck, if it's well played, it won't lose to almost anything, okay? You won't die to 6 damage almost never, okay? Unless they are playing like some kind of mask deck that they can destroy you fast, okay? So you want to play in a way you keep grinding those 2, but if you defend enough, not enough it's not the word, if you defend well, you should be able to have access to Persona right every turn and then use the bounces properly in order to keep bouncing one of those 2 and then grinding Overcoming. However, let's say you keep this in hand 1 turn because it's not worth using, then this means you have access to this to draw more cards. Maybe you get missing cards from your deck, or maybe you can use Malice in order to have more souls. So let's say you not use that because you have kept this, or you have played those cards well and you can always bounce the card because you have defended well. You can keep Persona riding. Okay, so you need to be good at playing your defense in order to optimize it. If you optimize the defense, you will be able to bounce Zorga more times. Okay, usually you will be doing 1 bounce and then you will be using Overcoming for the Blitz order. Like you're usually bouncing this, grabbing the order for the next turn. The order has been set up with Coutir properly, which it's missing. And yeah, I feel this video it's a bit messy because I kinda want to like make you grasp the whole deck in 1 second, and it's very hard. But yeah, I think you're understanding how the synergies work. You need to handle well your defense in order to be able to bounce Persona right or this the most of the time, or maybe Shadow Cloak to keep milling orders. And when you do, you are very, very based and strong and super mega overpowered, okay? And then let's talk about some of the good order combinations, okay? You need to hit a threshold of 38k, 33, 38k power on the side columns. In order to do that, you have to set this fast, and depending on how many orders can you set, because it depends on if you can Alchemagic before using Nadir or not. Just be smart about how you intercept with the Shadow Cloaks, and be sure you can choose if you want to like double intercept and go get those 2 back, then Alchemy Magic, for example, or not. Okay, be smart about that. And then you have to use this to keep bouncing your cards from drop zone and accessing the right amount of power. Okay, so this order is also very good when the cards are missing, but you don't want to bounce. Like, let's say you're already bouncing, you have Shadow Cloak and you want to bounce something from drop zone, because we know that it's not the same to draw the card than recycling it from the drop zone, because if it's from drop zone, it's an extra copy. So let's say you don't want to use Habitat, you want to get the PG from the drop, and then you can use this to draw another, and maybe you find the second PG. That's interesting. This is also good to find the persona rights if you don't have them. And then there is like 3 ways of finding your cards. Those 2 are good. If this is like from drop, from deck, and this is like an in-between, right? Because you can cycle the thing you have in drop zone while maybe finding for Philander or a booster. And this also gives you access to the Zorga that it's laying on the soul. If you want to bounce Persona right and you don't have another Persona right in hand, you might want to set up for the next turn and get the Zorga Nadir from the soul, and maybe you can use this with the Blitz order because you have been good at defending and you have kept the PG. You haven't used the PG, you have like used triggers to keep the PG in hand, because next turn what you wanna be bouncing is Zorga, and you keep the PG in hand and you have access to this and have access to that. Okay, that's a good play, that's a good setup, right? So you know that, and you see, like, let's say, how to put the example? Well, it's basically that. I think it can be understood without a literal example. But the thing is, like, you want to have 1 bounce and keep having the most of it, okay? And then you will use this for drawing cards that you are missing when you don't want to bounce. Oh yeah, I forgot that. And if you don't have the card and you want to see it, you go for this, because this is the card that gives you the most chance, okay? So, but then you know you want bounce with this, so you need to, okay, to find the things. You fetch for that early if you are missing the Shaluncher too, or if you don't have the PGs in hand. If you don't see the PGs in hand, you want to prepare that, because you want to have access to it. And maybe sometimes you are turn 4 and you haven't still gotten one, so you say, okay, I have this prepared, so I will use it now to get my theme, okay? Then, I don't know, like, I feel like this video is perfect because I'm 100% chaotic, but I think you can still grasp. I hope you can understand what I'm saying, okay? So yeah, just be smart with this. You can only do 1 bounce per turn, ideally. Sometimes you can do both, but I don't want to lie to you. Like, I don't know, if maybe you have 2 Alanas and you have 4 soul, okay, but let's talk about average things. And yeah, you want to do this. Also be smart about the shadow RPD thing. Knowing when not to go for the 2 RPDs, it's really important, okay? So yeah, you will be basically using this, having it to hand, keep doing the bounces and using the right tools on the right situations, and then you have to use Coutir turns ahead to put the cards on the right zones, okay? Those zones are deck. If you want the order to stay in deck, maybe you get for this and use that, this goes back, okay? That's something you can do. Or with this, like, you want to get another piece from deck, or you want to get a piece from deck and draw, and this goes back, okay? Coutir can be used for that. Coutir can be used also alongside with Shadow to prepare a massive amount of orders. This pays the cost. You don't plus as much, but that's fine. And you prepare the card you want to have in hand, because maybe, let's say, this is in drop zone and next turn you want to bounce and draw. So what you do is like, put it here. It doesn't matter if you don't use it, because this gets bound, whatever, and this will get bound to hand turn 3, and then turn 4 you can go with this, with that, which is what you wanted to be doing, okay? So yeah, you can use this to translate into card advantage, maybe if you want to have the fodder for the PGs, or you can turn this card not into card advantage, but you turn it into quality cards, because you get the cards you want to have in your hand, so you can play, okay? Yeah, I like it. I'm proud of the video. Okay, it was a bit messy. If you have any question, you can find me on Discord, and you can find me on the YouTube channel, and I always try to answer back Also, if you find this content it's interesting for you, please like and subscribe, okay? And as always, have fun, stay safe, and see you soon.